Hi everyone, we're live almost at SecT conference and we're still here at the community night, and right now we have Romaric with us who gave a talk on sort of eavesdropping on live streams, or maybe not live streams, but streams from different streaming services.
And I saw the end of your talk, and my understanding is you presented magic, right? That's the core idea here. You take something which is encrypted.
Yeah.
And you have some sort of reference library.
Completely.
And somehow you recognize when the same stuff is transmitted.
True. So basically what we do is that, so you can talk about live streams, because the streams are live, you eavesdrops them, exactly, and then you can recognize what is streamed, even though the streams themselves are encrypted. And this is because of the protocols. The protocol that is used to download the stream leaves some traces. They leave some small pieces here and there, and thanks to those pieces, then you can retrieve the video.
And is this like a compression oracle, or what is it you actually are recognizing?
You recognize, in this work that I presented today, it was to recognize the title, to recognize what the video is about.
Yeah.
You will recognize a bit more because you also know exactly where in the video you are. So basically you can even reproduce what is currently being watched exactly at the second. There are other work that we are doing where you can also classify. So you can also not recognize only the video, but you can also say, what is it about? Even of our encrypted.
Yeah, so that is so cool. Could you I'm sorry to interrupt here, but could you sort of just elaborate on where there could be a use for this technology?
So,
except on spying on your girlfriend, or
yeah, of course. Everyone wants to do that, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I try to highlight at the end of the talk. So you can either be on the good guy side, on the bad guy side. Mm-hmm. On the good guy side, I would say, imagine that, especially for example, not only the identification but classification. Mm-hmm. You are recording traces from Facebook. Mm-hmm. And you can maybe find out when people are watching terror videos, for example, illegal content. And this, when you find out, then you want to cancel it. Mm-hmm. That's a really big deal on Facebook. You want to stop people watching illegal content. That's really something we want to do. But you can also think of the bad guys that might use that to find out when you are watching something that is against the government.
Yeah.
Then I have to say, then you're in between. Yeah. What we are trying to show is that this is possible. Mm-hmm. Then it's up to whoever is making this possible to stop it, to update the protocols.
Cool. So you need to, because you're finding some sort of oracle, right? There's something like if a length oracle or I'll let you explain in a second what the actual oracle techniques or what it actually is, because you have told us that it's related to titles and things like that. I kind of lost my point here, but like what would be the obvious fixes against these attacks?
That's a really good question, actually. I think there is not a really obvious, simple fix. Otherwise, it would have already been done somehow. Mm-hmm. Usually against those type of attacks, that's what we call in academics like passive network attacks. Yeah. That means that you are passively listening. Yeah. Exactly. You are just listening. So somehow they are really almost invisible to counteract, to at least to detect, because you are not interacting with the network. You are just listening. So you cannot see they are there, even though they can do some heavy damages. So how can you counter them? The basic techniques, usually it's you are trying to kind of shuffle to try to hide those side channels that you are giving away in choices. The two main side channels is the time of your packets and the size of your packets. Mm-hmm. The only thing is that with the attack we've shown, it is difficult to counteract by just changing these two main side channels, because the packet size is almost always the same with streaming.
Yeah.
It's always near the maximum size. And when you look at the time, even if you randomize the time of your packets, they may be sent like a little bit later. Mm-hmm. It's still, since the video is streamed within like 4 seconds, this makes me
it's a real-time protocol here.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So except if we are going somewhere where a protocol will stream the video in kind of constant bit rate, where every 4 seconds there will be the same number of bytes, then it will solve the problem, but then the compression will not be as good. So it's always a compromise.
I think
breaks the idea.
Right, hasn't it been like predecessors to voice over IP, where you almost kind of can reconstruct simple sounds based on detecting silences or something like that?
Mm-hmm. Again, I'm sorry, Peter, for interrupting, but I'm really curious. What got you into researching this?
That's a really good question. I think the very first article I read was not a published article. It was like a media. It was about these guys that actually did something very similar on Netflix, and I just read that and I thought, wow, that's impressive. Yeah. Can we do it on other services? And I look around, and it was not really, it doesn't be looked for that much. And then I thought, okay, I will give that to some students and see if that works. Cool. If that was 5 years ago, this attack, it has been shown, and it's still working now. So I think it's maybe time to update this Dash protocol.
Yeah. So your attack was targeting the Dash protocol.
Yeah.
So an idiot's guide to Dash. What's the difference between Dash and whatever else? I'm not an expert in streaming really, but
I mean, in Dash, since you divide the video in small chunks, each chunk has a fixed size, as a size that corresponds to whichever encoding you are using to encode that chunk of the video. I mean, this protocol, I mean, they didn't think about it. Maybe there was 5 years ago. That was before GDPR, etc. Maybe they didn't think already that we cannot make a protocol that gives so much precise information about the video.
Because they were probably looking at optimizing performance and things like that.
Completely.
But, so
it's very good in terms of how it adapts to the bandwidth. It's really reactive. All the smartness is at the client, so that means that it's really versatile as a protocol. It's just that it really gives really precise information about the video.
All right, but would this be slightly similar to like an MPEG stream or something, the Dash protocol, or?
So the difference is that when you have an MPEG stream, it's not stream, it's just you are watching an MPEG video on your computer. Usually it will be compressed, right? With a certain encoding, a certain codec. The usual codec that we are using now, they are very good at compressing videos. They use what is called variable bitrate. So that means that they will not use the same number of bytes for 1 second if you have 1 second of black screen or 1 second of heavy action. You can think that 1 second of black screen, I can use really a low number of bytes, of course. And heavy action, I will use higher than the average. So the thing is that if you want to compress well the videos, you need to use these variable bit rates. So sometimes increase, sometimes decrease. And that is what Dash is leaking, basically. It's leaking even worse of the video itself. The video itself, if you look every second, you will see this variable bit rate. But if you look every second, 4 seconds is even worse because the difference are a bit bigger.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
So countermeasures are basically redesign the protocol.
Yes, there are other protocols. I think they will take over soon in a couple of years. So we might not hear of this attack, but I know they also attack on both other protocols because of this variable bitrate. Yeah. So even if you have other network protocol, you still have this, and I don't know, it's a compromise. Will you compromise how much data you will have to download to have this extra privacy?
That's the. I'm sorry, we're just talking.
Yeah, right.
I mean that's the compromise you need to take into account. You have to weigh, the privacy issue on the same scale as your bandwidth issue, basically.
Completely. I think that's maybe the topic for the next 5 to 10 years. Is like how much performance are we willing to
sacrifice
to get better privacy, because a lot of privacy. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and like SVT, like you use an example. We don't imagine, at least when we're Sweden, we don't imagine an attacker being interested in this. But let's say, but of course, it's much more interesting if we assume that you are in some other place where it might. But let's say, like the hardest protocol to attack, where you could inspect this without, let's say, when it's encrypted, then you would want constant bit rate, and you would want constant size for metadata, so it doesn't those leaks either.
I mean,
it's like I guess I'm sorry too, but it's like thwarting any side channel. You need to make everything look the same.
Kind of. Yeah. That's completely true. But you got a point. Basically, there are two ways of making the attack either harder to reproduce or try it like this constant bit rate. So harder to reproduce, you said, that's true that this attack is also made easier because the Dash protocol, you have this manifest file that gives a lot of information where to retrieve the information. And then you can build this database. Yeah. If you didn't have such file where all the information is contained, it's just slower. You will take more time to find all the information you need. That's true. For the constant bitrate, that will be something like, that way I will not leak information. That will be good. But the only problem is that you will make, so either one option is that you compress the video with a constant bitrate, so that will be, you will use more space, you will use more data. Are you willing to use more data to download your videos? Thinking that most people don't care about if someone else is watching. Yeah. Either there might be techniques that are currently investigated where you can have a variable bitrate, but the constant bitrate will be on the protocol. Mm-hmm. So imagine that the network protocol gives you not 4 seconds of video, but 4,000 bytes, whichever that means, of video. And then it's the client, and that will make protocol much more complex, because the client will have not only to handle the download, but also to handle like the playback.
Yes. You'd have to have a much larger buffer, probably.
Exactly. You have to sacrifice something anyway.
Cool. I think you mentioned students.
Yeah, right.
So you're working at what's your day job?
True. So I'm assistant professor. So that means I'm giving lectures. That's part of my job as a teacher. Mm-hmm. The other part is as a researcher. So this work I presented today, I have to thank the 6 students that did a great bachelor thesis. So I supervised them, I gave them the topic, and then they developed this tool. Mm-hmm. So all of this that I presented today is thanks to them, of course.
Cool.
So they are working at Chalmers, that's in Gothenburg.
Yeah, the best.
That's why we asked.
In the universe.
Of course.
My old alma mater, of course. Yeah, great. Well, Romaric, it was awesome that you could take this time to talk to us.
That was really great, actually.
I hope you enjoy really the rest of the conference.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah. Great talking to you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you all.